On this episode, it's America versus Japan. It's the brand new Ford Expedition Fx4 versus Lexus LX. I'm gonna take them in the Rocky Mountains on two obstacles. First, articulation and traction test, and finally a rock crawl on Tombstone Mountain. Let's figure out if the Expedition has what it takes to stay with the best of the world, the Lexus LX. You might be saying, wait a minute, these do not compete. How can you compare a Lexus LX fully loaded at about $100,000 versus an FX4 Expedition that costs about $71,000? Well, actually, you can configure both of these at around 85 grand if you chose the right options. So in a way, they do compete. And if you remember, I took an FX4 Expedition off-road a couple years ago, and I had a bit of an issue with the rear locking differential. I want to find out exactly how it's going to perform now. The first test I'm doing today is this steep incline, which is going to test articulation and traction. We have a couple rocks, but mostly very loose dirt. The Lexus LX is first, and I put this truck in the best possible mode. Low range, I raised the suspension, the KDSS all the way up. I'm using crawl control. I locked the center differential, and I'm going to start in second gear, and I'm going to try to approach this hill with on the most difficult line and at a very slow pace. And let's see what these Dunlop tires can do and what the suspension, this fancy hydraulic suspension, can actually accomplish. Oh my, this was like a drive down rodeo. Absolutely zero drama. It was just comfy as all can be. Well, both of these are truck-based SUV. They take quite different approach to what they can do. The Lexus has a height adjustable suspension and a much better approach angle, even with that giant grille you see here. The Ford, not so much. This is as high as it goes, and it does have that spoiler. Under the hood of the Expedition is basically a Ford F-150 engine. It's a 3.5 liter twin turbo EcoBoost with 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. Yes, this engine has gobs of torque. It's made it to a 10-speed automatic transmission, and this particular FX4 model has a 373 rear differential ratio, which is really great for crawling. Under the hood of the Lexus is a lot of plastic. No, actually, this is a truck engine as well. 5.7 liters of displacement. This is basically a Toyota Tundra engine. 383 horsepower in this case, and 403 pound-feet of torque. So it has more horsepower but less torque. It's made it to an 8-speed automatic transmission, and it has a very sophisticated four-wheel drive system. Alright, let's see what the Expedition can do. I'm gonna enable for low, advanced track off, traction control disabled. Very similar to the Lexus. I'm gonna enable my rear limited slip differential. I'm gonna select my drive mode to be mud and ruts because my suspension is gonna articulate all the way. These two trucks have different suspension setups. There's no height adjustment on the Ford. I'm gonna take it at about a similar pace, exact same tracks. Wow, I could feel a lot more body lean, so not as much articulation, but there was plenty of traction from these Michelin tires. so I didn't slip, I just could feel a little bit more toss. On the first obstacle, both trucks did really well, except the Lexus was just a lot more comfortable. What I'm really trying to figure out here is which one of these makes the best Overland SUV, because both of these have 3 rows of seats, lots of space, lots of room, but how capable are they really off-road? And the Lexus LX is basically a relative of the Toyota Land Cruiser. It's just a more luxurious version of that truck. But those 21-inch wheels, yikes. I want to see how that works. This is a 2020 Expedition Fx4. It's a limited trim, but this is not a top-of-the-line Expedition. You still have the King Ranch and the new Platinum versions of this particular truck. And the Fx4 package is far away from a Raptor version of an Expedition, but the Fx4 package does give you those Michelin tires, which have a little bit more bite to them. The Lexus has what they call adaptive variable suspension. It's a kind of a fancy system. It's basically a hydraulic system with also high pressure gas. It can adjust your ride height, but it will also try to kind of push the wheel that's unloaded, that's trying to go in the air while you're going over obstacles off-road. It's going to try to push it downward so it makes contact with the ground. And we all know the more tires you have in contact with the terra firma, the better traction you will have. Even with these wheels and tires, the ride is still relatively comfy. A lot of the hydraulic components are also tucked high up against the frame and also have their own special skid plates and steel bars to protect them. So Lexus is definitely thinking about durability, longevity, and capability of this truck to go far overland. Here in the Lexus, in the center console, you have more controls than in a spaceship, and all the materials are beautiful and nice. You have a drive mode selector here. You have your crawl mode selector here that switches between loose rock, mogul, rock and dirt, rock, and etc. Here you have a 4 high and 4 low, and this is a full-time 4-wheel drive vehicle, unlike the Ford, which can run in 2-wheel drive. And here's your height adjustments for your suspension, where you can go low or high, and it works very fast. You don't have to wait for it. You can also disable it, the adjustment, if you're stuck on a rock somewhere. Now we have another array of buttons over here. When you're in 4 low, the traction control is already relaxed, but you can lock the center differential using this. You could start in 2nd gear if you want to, and on loose surfaces. This button helps you make tighter turns, but I'm not going to talk about it now because there's another video on our channel where Roman and Tommy actually demonstrate this in a really good way. Up here by the steering wheel, there's a camera button that's hidden from the driver's view. So you actually need to know exactly where it's at. You can select it and get a camera view on your center display, which shows you several things. You could see down both sides of your truck, and in the front you could see kind of where the steering wheel is pointed, and it will help you go over obstacles. Up here in the gauge cluster, there's more alphabet soup, but there's also a display for the center locker that's enabled. You can manually control the traction control system. Of course, in 4 low, it also disables the driver assistance features like the collision warning. Crawl activated! And you can control the speed of the crawling. But none of the technology features actually matter. The only thing that matters is that in the center console, this truck has a fridge. Oh yeah! It's using air conditioning to cool down your drinks. That's nice. The Ford doesn't have that. Alright, so the suspension is once again in its highest setting, and I like that. I like to have ground clearance so I can go over obstacles with confidence. And I've selected the loose rock setting on the multi-terrain system, so I want to see how that works and if the Lexus will take me up the mountain by itself so I can just steer. Here we go. The LX is basically a truck-based SUV. It does have a frame, it has a solid rear axle, independent front suspension, and an engine basically out of a Tundra. This 5.7 liter has lots of torque, and I'm going to try to take one of the more difficult paths, and I'm going to take the exact same path with this truck as with the Ford. And right now the terrain system seems to be working just fine. I just love the bit of traction there. Okay, it figured it out. The system is doing it. I'm impressed. You would think this Lexus would be a hoity-toity, a boulevard cruiser, but it's got the technology to get you out of trouble. Nice. In this limited version of the Expedition, there's a lot of black on black on black, but the center console actually has some nice touches. And here's your control center. It's way more simple than on the Lexus, but you do have a knob, so no console shifter or a column shift. This is a way to control your 10 speed. The drive mode selector is over here. This mode has tow mode, mud and ruts, sand, snow, grass, normal mode, economy, and sport. So you can control everything in one place. You have 4 auto, 4 low, and then the rear locking differential. This plus and minus is just to shift gears in manual mode on the transmission. And Ford engineers said they did this here to save space, give a little bit more console space, and also they're looking forward to the future. And I'm not sure what that means, but I can guess that maybe some autonomous driving as well. The Expedition does not have a full crawl control mode, but it does have hill descent, which you can enable here. It does also have cameras, so it does have a 360 mode in this case, and front view. And when you put it in reverse, it'll also give you backup views, and you can zoom in. So I like this camera system a little bit better. It's a little bit closer to the driver. It's not fully high resolution, but it's more usable. The Expedition takes care of things differently. It's a 4-corner independent suspension. I have a little bit more tire, and the tire is a little bit more aggressive. There's not really a center diff lock, but a rear limited slip lock. And it's not truly an F-150, although it is also truck-based, F-150 frame for the most part, with modifications. Wow, the Expedition, and maybe it's a function of the tires, it did better. It didn't get stuck for a second like the Lexus did. I'm very impressed. Good job, Expedition. In the Expedition, you do have power third row. It's not too slow, it's alright. You can extend these up, headrests. Then of course you can fold them. And the big thing about Overland vehicles, right, is just overall space and room. So let me try to fold the second row as well. And wow, this is huge. All right, so I'm gonna use this as a pillow actually. No, I'm not. All right, so when you're overlanding and you gotta spend the night, the Expedition is great. And this is a short wheelbase. This is not even a long max version of the Super Duty. I'm just over 6'2", and I have a mile of space. It's like a queen-size bed. This is pretty amazing back here. And of course I have the panoramic sunroof to boot. One more secret feature, separate glass. I love this feature because you can get access to your groceries or your equipment while you're camping. When you're in a vehicle that costs $100,000, you must have a tailgate. I think that's just the rule. So you can do this. You can change your boots. Maybe you can go fishing. But let's fold the seats and see how much space it has. Of course, you can deploy your third row, and it folds from the side. Alright, so now I think what you can see here is that the Lexus, it's showing its age a little bit. This is an older design. Yes, it's very usable, but as far as floor space, it's not a lot of space. Check this out. Okay, I'm hitting my head. So I can't quite close the tailgate and also stretch out. So I think when Toyota and Lexus redesign the Land Cruiser and the LX, they might give it a little bit more space, because it does have to compete against the likes of that new Expedition. Let's see if I can push one button if both the tailgate and the upper portion will fold by themselves. No. Okay. All right. Okay. Which one is a better Overland machine? Is it really the LX, the luxurious brother of the Land Cruiser, or is it this Expedition Fx4, which is currently the most off-road worthy Expedition you can buy? If you do want to travel long distance off-road, just like in the Lexus, you'll have to do a few mods to this Expedition. But the good thing about the new Expedition is its fuel efficiency. EPA rating of 19 combined from this twin-turbo V6. In the Lexus, that's 14 combined. That's a huge difference. That's why people who modify Land Cruisers and Lexus LXs actually put additional fuel tanks on them. In this Expedition, you probably don't have to do that. But you may have to lift this truck a little bit, maybe give it a more aggressive tire. Guys, if you do have a modified Expedition, please let us know in the comment section below, or email us at ask@tfltruck.com. I'm really curious about off-road worthy Overland Expeditions out there. The ride in the Expedition is still not too bad, but the Lexus is smoother. This Expedition Limited does retail at just over 71,000 bucks. I think the interior has a couple of, it's not issues, it just doesn't feel like a $70,000 plus vehicle. The Lexus really spoils you with luxury. The Expedition could be a little bit more luxurious. Or maybe you need a Navigator. Heck, get a Lincoln. I think he's probably had that license plate for some time, because it's hard to get a custom plate made like that. In summary, the Lexus LX is ultimately comfortable off-road, even with those 21-inch wheels. The interior quality is amazing, but today I'm gonna pick the Expedition Fx4, and it has nothing to do with the price difference. The Expedition was more capable today. It surprised me the most. It had the power, and the limited slip differential never gave me a trouble today. And guys, go back to tfltruck.com for more news, views, and real-world full-size SUV reviews.